how to paint your very own masterpiece today. If you've been painting in watercolor for a while now, you may be struggling, you may not get the results you want. In this video, I will show you how you can get those results by the end of the day, by this weekend, really fast without a change to your skills or experience. And you want to stick around because I will share some rare footage of me working on a very complex painting, the type I don't usually film because it requires so much focus and attention and care. You will get a snippet into that, but without further ado, let me show you the painting. So as some of you might have suspected, I'm referring to this painting called OCD2. This is a lovely interior of a beautiful restaurant, and I do believe this painting is a couple of notches above what I'm usually painting. And I'm not going to bury the lead. Here's what allowed me to do that. Very simple, very straightforward. Proper planning and very careful execution. And regardless of your skill level and experience in watercolor, these are two things you can utilize to paint a beautiful masterpiece. Literally, just this second, click out of the video and do it. Because if you have a clear drawing, and I will share here on the screen a couple of the stages from my stories and from photos and scans I did, if you are taking care to paint a very accurate drawing, and you can trace it. I don't care, you don't have to draw from observation. Trace a very accurate drawing. And then you really take your time with the stages and you carefully observe your reference photo. There's no excuse. You can actually paint and reach a much higher level than your usual. You may not hit this level, but you will hit something that's way above your usual stuff. And I am referring mostly to paintings, again, done based on a photo where you actually strive to paint representationally close to the photo. So if you have careful planning and you know that this area is this dark, and you just focus on that area, and you just paint it carefully and gradually get it darker and darker to look the way you want it to, there's no excuse. You can do this. Okay, you can take your time and paint this. You can take your time and very carefully paint this layer. Like I did in the first wash, by the way, you can very carefully focus on temperatures and just use the three colors cleanly with just water. This is what I did here. Blue, red, yellow, and that's it. And it is possible. And then after you finish that, you focus on a small area like this section right here. What's my challenge? Is it getting a smoother transition here to represent the fumes or whatever it is here from the food and the cooking? Okay, I know that's my problem. How am I going to tackle it? Am I going to do multiple washes and carefully blend or smoothen out this edge? Am I just going to have a hard edge here and maybe later blend it out? Will I use opaque paint to balance it out? Will I do, like, you can find solutions as long as you have careful planning and then very careful execution. And I want you to really understand that this is possible. So let me take you to some of the processes highlights that I did film. I want to show you how I approach this kind of thing and how you can as well. So we're going to take some time on this figure on the left because this is where I filmed a lot of the process, and I want to show you how slow and meticulous it is, okay? So after quite a lot of mixing time, I've arrived at this cool-ish gray, and that's going to be a base color for the hair. So I'm actually painting the mid value right now, believe it or not, to which I'm adding wet in wet black paint straight out from the well. I'm not diluting it at all. What this creates is a mid value and a dark, in addition to the previous washes highlights over on a general scale, because I'm going to paint all over his face. So what you'll notice is now, look at how long I take to mix. That's a big part of it. That's something that is on steroids when I paint, actually, like a very detailed and careful painting. Usually, again, I don't film these processes. So that's one thing that you'll notice, and that goes into the careful planning and careful execution. Now, for the planning, you have seen the sketch stages, and you have seen the first wash, very slow, very meticulous. And then when you have this solid of a foundation, you can actually take your time and work a little more carefully on these stages. So you understand, and I recognize a bit of red on that ear, I'm doing it wet and wet. Understand nothing is stopping you from creating a fantastic result if you're careful enough. So you'll notice right now, I'm going to paint the entire shadow on this person's robe or whatever. I don't know what the professional name for it is. So I pre-wet an area. Again, look at how I'm planning my steps. I'm not just going haphazardly. I pre-wet an area where I want a smooth edge. And then I'm putting a wash on that left side. So you see I got a smooth edge on the right and just the rest of the wash there. And I'm very carefully, very deliberately following the lines I established. Now, I'm not necessarily approaching this in a matter of like every single line obsessively, but I am being very careful and meticulous. Now, as I'm moving down, you'll notice how, and this is really important to emphasize actually, notice how we always talk about connections, connect as many shapes as you can. You'll notice that I'm putting this shadow and it connects to this mid value I put, right? There's the dark shadow and then there's the lighter value we just put earlier. So I am making connections, but just like I told you about the shapes and the pencil lines, I'm not obsessed with it. I am okay with working to some extent with fragmented areas, as you'll see just now. Look at the background. I'm tackling it one shape at a time. I am connecting some of it, and connections, people ask me a lot about it. It does make the painting read a little easier, but look at what I'm doing right now. I'm literally painting the shapes of shadow. I'm just painting around the highlights, and I'm using a very fragmented approach, every shape at a time. That is okay. Especially for larger pieces, funny enough, they can be even more forgiving. Look at what I'm doing. I just cleaned my palette, a rare occurrence. I need a clean blue, and in these paintings, I usually take the time to clean the palette if I really need a clean single hue. But in any case, I'm working in split up shapes. That's okay. Large paintings can be more forgiving because from afar, no one will really care if you paint fragmented. Look at this. I'm running this at a much faster pace than what I actually painted it. A collection of small independent shapes, and that is perfectly okay. Look at this entire background. I'm looking at the reference photo, at my photo in black and white and in color, and I'm really just painting those fragmented shapes. It's all gonna work out. Which is why I say you don't necessarily need more skill. What you need is a better plan and more focused, patient even execution. Don't worry, it's gonna be okay. Now, you may not get my result because I've been doing this for about 7 years, but you will get a good result that is probably more polished than your usual work, right? Look at how I'm careful here. I'm doing wet and wet. I'm establishing the beard and the mustache, and I'm even going to establish a small gentle eye or shadow around the eyebrow. Now look at this. I rotated the page. That's something I'll frequently do when painting larger, more careful pieces. It really helps with getting a smooth wash because I need a dark on top and light on bottom, like this. It's much easier to start with the dark from the top and go down bottom. And then when I flip it, it's going to be top light and bottom dark. So I'm using every means at my disposal to make sure that I get the result I want. Here, I just needed an even darker value, so it's okay. I flipped it back. And look at how, you can't see it actually, it's off camera. I mixed a ton of this paint. It's on the other side of the palette. I mixed a ton, so I don't have to remix anything, because that's a very dangerous thing with such a dry, dark wash. So I was well prepared. I pre-wet the area with the fumes there that I talked about. I made it a smoother transition, right? You have to be more deliberate. Look at this pot there. A bit of warm, right? And then a bit of cool next to it. That looks so good. And then I'm going to smoothen out some edges on the left in just 1 second. Very careful. Again, more careful than my usual work. And look at how good this looks. It's an embodiment of temperatures, of shapes, chromatic, shiny, and then this side here, very abstracted. It's to the side of the painting. I'm not looking for trouble there, not looking for too many distractions, so I'm unifying a lot of shapes there, and it's easier because it's a pattern, it's not an object, okay? And some details on the table. Again, this is going to be a collection of shapes. This is so fun, trust me. Doing this is so much fun. Just a collection of shapes, but it's okay to work on them separately. I am doing that constantly with this painting because that's what the process dictates. Some shapes and things you paint will dictate a bit of a different approach, and that's okay. Don't be obsessed with, don't get married to one single technique. Okay, be flexible. Do what you. I'm rotating. I'm working from left to right, so it's easier to work top to bottom. So I'm rotating the paper to work with gravity, right? This entire single wash, I'm gonna do all the pots and the pans and tools and bowls mostly here in one go. One go, top to bottom. Started cool, going warm, going cool again. There are plenty of highlights in these. I'm skipping like 99% of them. Why? Because it's much easier to get a smooth wash and then bring back the highlights. Everyone is so impressed with the highlights. That's the easiest part to paint. The harder part to paint is smoother, gradual transitions, like this blue that I'm going to put here in just 1 second. You'll see this. I'm pre-wetting, and we're going to add some coolness into that, some blue. It's going to look fantastic. Okay, so you see a more deliberate process and a great plan. Get a reference that's not too hard to paint. Sketch it out, trace it. I don't care. Do whatever it takes to get an accurate drawing. Here I'm spraying a bit of water. Trace it, paint it carefully, shape by shape, and you'll do fine. You'll go a couple of levels beyond what you thought is possible for you. Trust me. You can do this. I really hope you found this helpful and encouraging. Do check out my courses if you want to learn how to paint more loosely and more accurately. Do check out the books on Amazon. I do appreciate everyone who supports my work, and I will see you in the next video.